Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Soul Land 2 Peerless Tang Men based on novel. So let's start. Yang Xiaozhe instantly opened his eyes wide. That's actually the heavenly centipede Doluo, Nangong Wan. No wonder he seemed so familiar. When I was out exploring after I graduated from the academy, I once interacted with him. His martial soul was very difficult to deal with, especially with the poison in it. I wanted to kill him then, but his poison was too strong. Eventually, he escaped. I didn't expect him to land in your hands today. Elder Song shook her head and said, he didn't exactly land in my hands. Yuhao and I teamed up to capture him. To be honest, I'm starting to like the idea of fighting alongside Yuhao. With him around, I feel that my powers have increased. Yang Xiaozhe didn't expect Elder Song to think so highly of Huo Yuhao and laughed. Elder Song, don't spoil my little junior like that. Elder Song chortled and said, I mean what I say. Yuhao's spiritual power is not inferior to any spiritual type titled Doluo. Apart from his cultivation being slightly weaker, his control and auxiliary abilities are definitely not inferior to a titled Doluo. For fights at our tier, it would be of great help if he were around. Huo Yuhao was a little embarrassed as he said, Elder Song, you praise me too much. Elder Song smiled without saying anything. Yang Xiaozhe laughed, little junior, don't be so humble. Come, tell us how you faced the heavenly centipede Doluo and describe the entire fighting process. Huo Yuhao looked at Elder Song. After Elder Song gave him permission, he described how he had met and fought the two evil soul masters in detail. After hearing that he had killed another evil titled Doluo, Yang Xiaozhe couldn't laugh anymore. As they were not that strong yet, those from the Tang sect didn't participate in fights against titled Doluo. However, Yang Xiaozhe was clearly aware of the abilities of evil titled Doluo. He knew how frustrating they were to deal with him. He questioned whether he could deal with two evil soul masters in such a short time even if he teamed up with Elder Song. From Huo Yuhao's description, it seemed like the two evil soul masters were killed even before they managed to unleash their full strength. Huo Yuhao's spirit eyes are very mysterious. No wonder Elder Song is so in awe of him. No wonder he's a leading figure of the new generation. No wonder teacher mentioned that the academy would have a pillar once Yuhao grows up. The academy's reputation as the top academy on the continent is destined to continue on. Yuhao. Yang Xiaozhe suddenly turned serious and looked at Huo Yuhao. Yes? Dean Yang. Huo Yuhao didn't understand why Yang Xiaozhe had suddenly become so serious. Yang Xiaozhe said, after this operation ends, don't go out so often anymore. Remain in the Tang sect or on Sea God's Island to cultivate. It's best if you wait until your cultivation reaches that of a titled Doluo before you leave again. Huo Yuhao didn't expect Yang Xiaozhe to say this. He revealed a bitter smile on his face. The Tang sect already had a teacher Xian, who wouldn't let him leave the sect. Now there was Dean Yang as well. Elder Song nodded in agreement and said, Xiaozhe is right. After we return this time, I'll talk to Elder Xian. Don't leave Shrek City so easily in the future. Elder Song, Dean Yang, why is that? Xiao Xiao asked, puzzled. Yang Xiaozhe smiled and answered, the academy can't afford to lose him. Yuhao is too important to the academy's future. Even though soul tools have become the trend of late, individual abilities are still of critical importance at the highest level. In the future, the academy will need someone who is very strong. Yuhao is shaping up to be this person. He was like teacher back then. He's even surpassed him. This is why we can't let him take any risks. Elder Song nodded. She completely agreed with Yang Xiaozhe's point of view. Huo Yuhao laughed bitterly and said, title Doluo, that'll take some time. But there are no buts, Elder Song said, no matter what happens, nothing is more important than your successful development. Whatever you want to achieve outside, the academy can help you. However, you must remain within Shrek City. Bei Bei, you are responsible for watching him after we return. If he sneaks off, I'll question you. Yes. Bei Bei revealed a smile on his face. He secretly thought to himself. It seems like I don't have to worry about little Junior's safety for some time now. Huo Yuhao coughed and said, Elder Song, Dean Yang, we should interrogate Nangong Wan first. Let's see if we can find out where teacher Xiao Ya is. Elder Song nodded and said, I'm afraid it'll be difficult. Evil soul masters are very twisted. They aren't afraid of dying. Furthermore, we can't force them to say anything. What ideas do you have? Huo Yuhao said, I can use my spiritual power to interfere with his thoughts and question him from there on, forcing him to tell the truth. However, my spiritual power must be far beyond his before I can do that, and he's a title Doluo. Even if his soul power is sealed, his spiritual power is still very strong. I'm afraid it'll be difficult. Yang Xiaojia's eyes shone with a cold light. That's simple. I'll just make him sufficiently weak. A person's mind is greatly connected to his body. When someone is weakened beyond a certain degree, his mind will also become weak and vulnerable. You can exploit that opportunity to question him. Huo Yuhao nodded and said, if that's the case, I'll give it a go. Everyone else can go back and rest. Xiaojia, Yuhao, follow me. Elder Song grabbed Nangong Wan with one hand and walked toward a room where no one was staying. Bei Bei said, Elder Song, let me tag along. He was really anxious about Tang Ya's whereabouts. Elder Song nodded and said, all right, you can come along. The four of them led Nangong Wan into the room. Elder Song passed Nangong Wan over to Yang Xiaojia and said, Xiaojia, you can take over. Yang Xiaojia nodded and said, let me take a look at his condition first to check whether he has any restrictions placed on him. Gentle white light shone from Yang Xiaojia's hand. He used his palms to quickly slap Nangong Wan's body. As he started slapping, Nangong Wan started shaking. At the beginning, the shaking was very gentle. However, as Yang Xiaojia slapped him even harder, Nangong Wan's body started to shake more and more. To a title Doluo, the power of his soul core was the core of his strength. Elder Song was using her soul power to seal Nangong Wan's soul core such that it spun at a slower speed. From there, it would be unable to provide him enough soul power. Yang Xiaojia only checked for 15 minutes before he stopped. He nodded at Elder Song and said, it should be fine. Even the Holy Ghost Church will find it difficult to put any restrictions on him, given his cultivation. Elder Song nodded and said, let's start then. What do you plan to do? Yang Xiaojia's eyes flashed coldly. I'll cripple his soul core first and allow his soul power to dissipate. In this way, he won't harm anyone anymore. Furthermore, without his soul power to support him, his body will become very weak, even with his great spiritual power. Elder Song nodded and said, all right, we'll do that then. You can do it. I'll protect you. Yuhao, be prepared. After we cripple his soul power, we don't know what kind of reaction we will elicit. We need to keep from descending into hysteria. Yes. Huo Yuhao walked to one side and sat cross-legged on a chair. He temporarily took a rest to restore his energy. Yang Xiaojia stood in front of the bed that they had laid Nangong Wan out in. His hands formed a ring in front of his body. Gentle white soul power surged out, and gradually turned dim gold. The soul power undulations that were released also started to dance like flames. The soul power slowly formed a whirlpool that drifted above Nangong Wan. It wasn't easy trying to cripple a title Doluo's soul core. It was like what had happened when Huo Yuhao performed the test. A huge explosion could occur if one's soul core was affected. If the soul core of a title Doluo exploded, it could potentially be very dangerous. If a title Doluo died, just like the masquerade Doluo, things would still be fine. This was because the soul core of a dead title Doluo would shrink and slowly vanish, as he gradually lost his life energy. Even if an explosion occurred, it would happen in another dimension. It wouldn't affect this world. However, to cripple a soul master's soul core before he was dead was much more troublesome. A soul master's soul core depended on the soul master's life energy. To cripple his soul core, the soul power in his soul core had to be guided out, and the soul core had to be destroyed just as it was at its weakest point. The white flames that revolved above Nangong Wan spun even faster. A white whirlpool subtly appeared in front of Yang Xiaozhe's belly. That was where his soul core was located at. Yang Xiaozhe was a transcendent Doluo. As Elder Mu's inheriting disciple, and the dean of Shrek Academy's martial soul department, he was very strong. His radiant phoenix was a top-ranked martial soul, and he was a transcendent Doluo. All these years, his soul power had been slowly improving. He was now a rank 96 title Doluo. Compared to Elder Song, he was only inferior by 1 rank. Although the difference in this 1 rank was very great, Yang Xiaozhe might not be much weaker than Elder Song if he fought her with his full strength, considering that his martial soul was much stronger. Right now, the aura of his soul core was released. Huo Yuhao, who was resting, had some kind of feeling. He didn't need to open his eyes, and he only silently sensed the soul power undulations from Yang Xiaozhe's body. He was secretly impressed. Yang Xiaozhe's soul power was also circulating in a whirlpool state around his soul core. However, the circulation of his soul power was much slower compared to Huo Yuhao. That was because his soul power was completely fluid. If Huo Yuhao's soul core was like a tornado in the sky, then Yang Xiaozhe's soul core was like a huge whirlpool that could devour everything in the ocean. The soul power that it contained was much greater. A title Doluo is indeed a title Doluo. As Huo Yuhao was secretly in awe, he was also reflecting on himself. As his abilities increased, his self-confidence also grew. He was even confident of fighting some title Doluo. However, the aura that Yang Xiaozhe exuded right now made him fully aware of how far inferior he was. Wasn't that the case? Although he appeared to have controlled the fight earlier, that was because Elder Song was around. If not for her, he would be dead against an evil title Doluo even if it was just a duel. If those 2 evil title Doluo had unleashed their full strength right from the start, he wouldn't have been able to take advantage, or even handle a fight at that tier. Elder Song and Dean Yang were both right. He had to be stronger. After he returned this time, he had to work harder on his cultivation, as he learned about soul tools from Teacher Xian. At least he had to fully absorb the manifold mysterious ice essence in his body first. As Huo Yuhao was thinking about all that, Yang Xiaozhe began. The white whirlpool above Nangong Wan slowly descended. The sharp part of it landed directly on Nangong Wan's dantian. When it touched Nangong Wan's body, Nangong Wan shuddered and regained consciousness. When he saw the flame on his body as he awoke, he was astonished. He clearly felt that his soul power was quickly seeping out from his dantian. It slowly dissipated, and as it dissipated, it entered another dimension. They're trying to cripple my soul power. Nangong Wan was horrified as he said, No, you can't do this. You've harmed so many people, Yang Xiaozhe said coldly, we are only carrying out justice. We are already being very merciful by not killing you. It's a good thing to get rid of your abilities as an evil soul master. No, I beg you. Leave me some soul power. I'll let you do whatever you want. To a title Doluo, the dissipation of his soul power was too terrifying. He was too used to having great strength. The moment he lost it all would be more tormenting than death itself. Yang Xiaozhe was moved and asked, Oh. You'll let me do whatever I want? Nangong Wan couldn't move, and could only speak, yes. I'll do anything you want. If you need me to, I can become an undercover agent in the Holy Ghost Church. You can put restrictions on my body. As long as you let me keep my soul power, I'm willing to do anything. Elder Song furrowed her brow and looked at Yang Xiaozhe. On the other side, Huo Yuhao had also slowly opened his eyes. They didn't expect Nangong Wan to be so spineless. All right, let me ask you a few questions first. Yang Xiaozhe said. However, the whirlpool was still sucking away his soul power. Nangong Wan answered in pain, Can you stop sucking away my soul power first? Yang Xiaozhe snorted coldly and said, as long as a title Doluor's soul core isn't destroyed, isn't it easy to restore his soul power? We can leave it like this. It'll keep you awake too. Let me ask you now. Answer me as quickly as possible. If you hesitate, I'll destroy your soul core. You only have one chance. Don't test my determination. All right. Ask me then. Nangong Wan knew that he was doomed. In front of a transcendent Doluor, there was no way he could take his chances. Where's the Holy Ghost Church's headquarters? Yang Shaozhe asked. After hearing his question, Nangong Wan was stunned, then laughed bitterly. I can't tell you. Before I entered the church, and all those who were able to enter the headquarters, had restrictions placed on them. Once we reveal anything, the restriction will be triggered. Surely you don't want me to blow apart, right? Yang Shaozhe was afraid in his heart. If not for Huo Yuhao's previous experience, he would have his doubts. However, he was convinced this time. In spite of this, he remained very stern. You're a titled Doluor. Who can place those restrictions on you? As he spoke, he immediately strengthened the suction of Nangong Wan's soul power. Nangong Wan hurriedly said, I really can't say anything. Our supreme leader was the one who personally placed the restrictions on us. Apart from her, the sect leader, vice-sect leader and the chief of the worship hall, everyone else in the sect has had restrictions placed on them. Once we mention where our headquarters is, we'll immediately blow up and die. Yang Shaozhe furrowed his brow. Does this mean that the Holy Ghost Church can take your life at any time if you betray them? Nangong Wan said, that won't happen. It's not easy placing restrictions on someone to control them. The Supreme Leader's curse can only be triggered through a very specific way. It's only when I entertain the thought of revealing the specific place in my head. Apart from this, there won't be any other effect. So this curse can't be removed? Yang Shaozhe asked. Nangong Wan laughed bitterly. It's not impossible. If someone's spiritual power is greater than the Supreme Leader's, this curse can still be removed. However, it's too difficult. The Supreme Leader is an ultimate Doluor. She's too strong. Yang Shaozhe nodded and asked, all right, let me ask you then. How many people are there in the Holy Ghost Church? How are they divided? This time, Nangong Wan didn't hesitate, and immediately said, the most powerful figure in the Holy Ghost Church is our Supreme Leader, who is also the Sun Moon Empire's death god Doluor. Apart from her, we also have our sect leader and vice-sect leader. They are married. Our sect leader is called Zhongli Wu, while our vice-sect leader is called Feng Ling. We have 8 honorary elders below them, who are all titled Doluor. There are evil soul masters of different tiers underneath these 8 elders. Apart from all of us, there are also special people in our church, including the 2 holy ladies. Great hope has been placed on them. They are very talented. That's why they hold important positions in the church. They are even more important than the 8 honorary elders. The evil soul masters in the Holy Ghost Church worship hall are the strongest. The hall master of the worship hall, who is also the chief of the worship hall, is the Darkness Holy Dragon and Dragon Emperor Doluor, Long Xiaoyao. He has 11 others in the worship hall under him. They are all titled Doluor, and 5 of them are even transcendent Doluor. Including the chief, there are 12 of them. Their statuses are very high in the church. Only the Supreme Leader can command them. Even the sect leader can't do so. Yang Shaozhe and Elder Song looked at each other. They had really benefited greatly from catching Nangong Wan this time. Such information was too valuable to Shrek Academy and the 3 empires of the original Doluor continent. Finally, they had some knowledge of the Holy Ghost Church's internal structure. According to Nangong Wan, the Holy Ghost Church had more than 20 titled Doluor, including 2 ultimate Doluor. They were indeed very strong. Bei Bei continued asking from one side, why aren't the 8 honorary elders in the worship hall, if they are titled Doluor too? Nangong Wan replied, the worshipped are hired by the church. They aren't all evil soul masters. The 8 elders have lineages related to the church. That's why they are different. Furthermore, those that are evil soul masters in the worship hall are all very talented. Their martial souls are also very strong. For example, the scorpion tiger Doluo Zhongpeng is one of them. Bei Bei asked again, apart from you and the masquerade Doluo, who else from the Holy Ghost Church is at the front line? Is the masquerade Doluo one of the 8 honorary elders? Nangong Wan answered, masquerade is ranked 7th among the elders. Apart from the 2 of us, the sect leader is also at the front line. There's the sect leader, a holy lady and 6 members from the worship hall. Excluding me and masquerade, there are 2 other honorary elders here. I'm ranked 2nd among the elders. Out of the other 2 elders, one is the 3rd elder, the Dark Lightning Doluo. Although his soul power is only at rank 92, he's also a class 9 soul engineer. His abilities aren't beneath mine. The other one is the 4th elder, the Netherworld Doluo. His martial soul is a Netherworld sword, and he's at rank 93. After hearing the words 3rd elder and 4th elder, Huo Yuhao suddenly jumped off from his seat. He revealed a hateful look on his face. If not for their ambush then, Wang Qiu'er wouldn't have needed to sacrifice herself. Huo Yuhao deeply hated the both of them. Yang Xiaozhi squinted and muttered to himself, the Holy Ghost Church is really relentless. They actually have 11 evil title Doluo. This time, we killed one of them and captured another one, but there are still 9 left. These evil soul masters are definitely more terrifying than class 9 stationary soul cannons if they join the war. I remember news from the Heavenly Soul Empire that purported that the borders of the empire were only breached because of the evil soul masters and the great casualties they caused. The same happened when Heaven Do City was attacked. Huo Yuhao came to the bedside at this moment, suppressing his hatred and asked, what are your holy ladies called? And where are they? Nangong Wan said, they have no name. We call them Holy Lady directly. The one at the front line right now is the Blue-Silver Holy Lady. The other one, known as the Phoenix Holy Lady, is with the vice sect leader. The Blue-Silver Holy Lady follows the sect leader, as he holds an important position. He stays in the tent next to the central tent in the Imperial Dragon Soul Engineer Legion's area. It's easy to identify because it's golden. The Blue-Silver Holy Lady stays in a tent beside his. Teacher Xiao Ya is indeed in the base. Huo Yuhao's eyes brightened, and he turned to Bei Bei. Bei Bei already looked pretty agitated right now. He finally knew where she was, and had an opportunity to save her. Suddenly, Bei Bei was overwhelmed, and subconsciously clenched his fists. Yang Xiaozhi nodded and said, I'll let you retain your soul power, seeing that you are so cooperative. As he spoke, he retracted the whirlpool above Nangong Wan, and slapped his forehead with his right hand, knocking Nangong Wan unconscious once again. The entire room descended into momentary silence. They had obtained valuable information after capturing Nangong Wan. Not only did they find out where Tang Ya and Ma Xiaodao were, but they also understood more about the internal structure of the Holy Ghost Church. This was very helpful to Shrek Academy to deal with the Holy Ghost Church in the future. Huo Yuhao looked at Yang Xiaozhi and asked, Dean Yang, since we have accurate information, can we planning how we're going to carry out our operation? Yang Xiaozhi was amused as he looked at him and said, didn't we agree that you'd command the operation? Of course you'll come up with the plan. What ideas do you have? Huo Yuhao couldn't be bothered with being modest right now and immediately replied, if we want to save teacher Xiao Ya, we can only bait her out. The Sun-Moon Empire's setup is too strong. 5 soul formations are enough to kill any expert. We need to bait teacher Xiao Ya out. Otherwise, there's no other way. Yang Xiaozhi squinted and said, how do we do that then? Unless it's a full-scale battle, the Holy Ghost Church's sect leader might not appear. Tang Ya will naturally not appear then. Huo Yuhao furrowed his brow and said, yes, that's why it's difficult. If we fight all out, the Heavenly Soul Empire will suffer heavy losses. Even if the Sun-Moon Empire wouldn't have sufficient resources to last the entire fight, they'll still be very strong once they attack. They still have a lot of evil soul masters to help them. That's why I believe that the Heavenly Soul Empire wouldn't be willing to cooperate with us if that were the plan. If that's the case, we only have one other solution. Oh? Elder Song, Yang Xiaozhe and Bei Bei focused their attention on Huo Yuhao. Huo Yuhao's eyes flashed with a cold light, and he turned to Nangong Wan before saying, "Nothing ventured, nothing gained." "No." Bei Bei shouted without any hesitation. His eyes were filled with horror. Although Huo Yuhao only said a few words, Bei Bei knew exactly what he wanted to do. "You can't do it. It's too dangerous," Elder Song commented. "You want to use him to enter the base. Have you even thought of what would happen if you were recognized? There are many powerful individuals in the Sun Moon Empire's base. The Holy Ghost Church's sect leader is even holding the fort. How can you sneak in so easily?" Huo Yuhao smiled and replied, "Elder Song, Dean Yang, eldest senior, don't worry. Since I came up with his idea, I'm naturally confident that it'll work. Although there's some risk, it's not as bad as all of you think. Elder Song, take a look." As he spoke, Huo Yuhao spun once. Suddenly, his aura changed greatly, and his body rapidly transformed. After he completed his turn, his look had completely changed. Didn't he look just like the masquerade Doluo? Even his aura was identical. It was sinister and cold. There were no discrepancies at all. Earlier, Elder Song and Huo Yuhao had faced the two evil-titled Doluo together. Right now, she was astonished when she saw the changes that happened to Huo Yuhao. Elder Song was a rank 97 titled Doluo. However, she couldn't tell that anything wrong with Huo Yuhao just by using her naked eyes. Elder Song increased her spiritual power and swept it across Huo Yuhao's body. Huo Yuhao shuddered slightly, but a wave of spiritual power was suddenly deflected back. It even carried a sinister aura. Just like before, there wasn't any difference from the masquerade Doluo. Huo Yuhao lifted his hands, and pitch-black maggots started to surface in mid-air. Every maggot carried strong spiritual undulations. They reached toward Elder Song like a huge web. However, Elder Song felt something wrong when she came into contact with this huge web. Earlier, the soul skill that the masquerade Doluo had unleashed caused her entire person, including her spirit, to slow slightly. However, Huo Yuhao's soul skill only left her slightly weaker. There was a difference when it came to strength, but the sinister aura remained. Elder Song said, "Your soul skill seems to be off, but it appears very similar on the surface." Huo Yuhao smiled and said, "It definitely won't be the same. However, with my imitation and Nangong Wan's help, there shouldn't be too many problems. Nangong Wan holds an even higher position than the masquerade Doluo. I'll ask him about some of the masquerade Doluo's habits later. After we return, I won't be easy to recognize with Nangong Wan leading the way. Even the sect leader can't tell who I am without laying his hands on me." Bei Bei shook his head and said, "No, it's too dangerous. I can't implicate you to save Xiao Ya. Little Junior, I know that you want to save her too. If not for the fact that I'm helpless, I would have volunteered to sneak in instead. However, you're different. You're the future hope of the Tang sect and Shrek Academy. I can't make you take this risk. If something happens to you, how could I account to the academy and the rest of our teammates?" Huo Yuhao said, "Eldest senior, we have no other way right now. We can only do this so that we can achieve our aim in the shortest time possible. Furthermore, who says that I'm going alone? All of you will follow me. I can't fight by myself." "What?" Bei Bei, Elder Song and Yang Xiaozhe were stunned as they looked at Huo Yuhao. Is he not going alone? However, there were so many of them and none of them had imitation like Huo Yuhao. How could they sneak in too? Huo Yuhao smiled mysteriously and said, "Let's make a simple plan and take advantage of the time that we have to sneak into the Sun Moon Empire's base first. After that, we can discuss our detailed plan." He lowered his voice and explained the plan once. After hearing his plan, Bei Bei looked enlightened, whereas Elder Song and Yang Xiaozhe were getting increasingly shocked. 1 hour later. The night sky was still dark, but the Sun Moon Empire's base wasn't peaceful. The sect leader of the Holy Ghost Church was standing in the center of the commander's tent of the Sun Moon Empire's crusading army. The marshal of this army was a very notable general in the Sun Moon Empire. Zhu Zi returned to the empire and had other plans. The army was now commanded by this marshal. Although he was already more than 70 years old, he was still a soldoluo. He was called Lin Hai. Although his cultivation wasn't great, his influence in the Sun Moon Empire was still great, as he hailed from a family of military men, and he was also a duke. Initially, when Zhu Zi had entered the army, he had helped her a lot. He was also of the same lineage as Xu Qianran. Otherwise, Xu Qianran wouldn't have passed him the reins of the three armies. Lin Hai had another advantage that enabled him to become marshal of the three armies. It was his abilities. Weak abilities weren't always necessarily a bad thing. Just because he wasn't a titled doluo, he couldn't command the stronger Class 9 Soul Engineer Legion, even though his influence in the army was very great. This was why he could only command the ordinary soldiers. While the legion commanders of the Soul Engineer Legions had to listen to his instructions, they still acted with great autonomy. Zhu Zi could truly ensure strict obedience to her instructions and command the entire army. It wasn't because of her abilities, but because of her mysterious and unpredictable strategies that left the three armies shocked. Right now, Zhu Zi was being called the female god of war in the Sun Moon Empire. Lin Hai didn't possess the same unpredictability as Zhu Zi, but he was more sturdy as a person. What was needed now was balance. He was naturally the most suitable person to command the three armies. However, Lin Hai wasn't in a good mood today. Yesterday, their ground-based surveillance Soul tools had discovered enemies sneaking about in the sky. Then, they fired a linked attack, but couldn't lock onto the enemies because they were too far away. This was why he didn't know what had happened. However, he gave the order to increase their surveillance of the sky after that incident. Indeed, the enemies appeared again today. Just as Lin Hai was about to attack the sky with even greater intensity, the sect leader of the Holy Ghost Church wanted to get people to capture their enemies alive. After all, enemies that could conceal themselves were very difficult to take precautions against. It was better for them to capture them and find out where their abilities came from. The sect leader of the Holy Ghost Church was also the imperial tutor. At the same time, he had the authority to supervise Lin Hai. Lin Hai naturally couldn't stop him, given that he had made such a proposition. As a result, the Heavenly Centipede Doluor and Masquerade Doluor were deployed. To Zhongli Wu, two evil-titled Doluor were enough to capture their enemies. However, who could guess that Nangong Wan and the Masquerade Doluor would disappear? Even the ground-based surveillance Soul tools only discovered strong soul power undulations before the two of them vanished. They were two evil-titled Doluor. The Holy Ghost Church had been around for so many years, but there weren't many evil-titled Doluor. Zhongli Wu held Nangong Wan in high regard. Although he wasn't young anymore, his heavenly centipede could still improve. If he was lucky enough, he might still become a transcendent Doluor. Now that both of them were missing, how could Zhongli Wu not be furious? This video will end here.